Admiral Zix-9 sat in his command chair aboard the massive warship Stellar Dominion. The bridge was quiet except for the soft humming of machines and the occasional beep from control panels. His 6 arms moved across different screens as he reviewed the daily reports from patrol ships scattered across this section of space. The Galactic Empire controlled thousands of star systems. Each day brought routine reports about trade ships, mining operations, and the occasional pirate problem. Nothing interesting had happened in this sector for months. Zix-9 liked it that way. Boring meant peaceful, and peaceful meant everyone stayed alive. Lieutenant Kree-4 rushed onto the bridge. His blue scales were pale with worry and his breathing was quick and shallow. The young officer held a data pad in his shaking hands. Other crew members looked up from their station, sensing something was wrong. "Sir," Kree-4 said, his voice cracking slightly, "we have detected something unusual at the edge of the Centauri system." Zix-9 turned his main eyes toward the lieutenant while keeping his side eyes on the tactical displays. "Define unusual, Lieutenant." Kree-4 activated the main screen. A complex wave pattern appeared, showing energy readings that made several officers gasp. The pattern was unlike anything in their databases. It pulsed with a strange rhythm that seemed almost alive. "The signal does not match any known Imperial vessel," Kree-4 explained. "But sir, it has similarities to the profiles we have on file for human military technology." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member stopped what they were doing. The word human carried weight that could crush spirits and break the strongest warriors. 3 months ago, reports had come from the Vega colonies about a human attack. A single human ship had destroyed an entire Imperial squadron. The survivors spoke of impossible tactics and weapons that defied all known physics. Zix-9 felt his heart's beating faster. Humans were the nightmare that kept Imperial commanders awake at night. They appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating force, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Their ships seemed to break the laws of space combat. Their strategies made no sense until it was too late to counter them. Far away from the Imperial fleet, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the pilot seat of his cargo transport Lucky Strike. The ship was old, dented, and held together with spare parts and hope. Morrison was hauling farming equipment to the outer colonies, the kind of boring job that paid just enough to keep his ship running. His navigation computer had died 2 days ago. The backup system kept giving him wrong coordinates. His fusion drive was making strange noises and leaving an energy trail that worried him. Every few hours, warning lights would flash on his control panel for no reason he could figure out. Morrison scratched his beard and stared at the star charts. He had been a cargo hauler for 15 years. He knew how to fix most problems with basic tools and creative thinking. But this trip was testing his skills. Everything that could go wrong seemed to be going wrong at once. He did not know that his broken fusion drive was broadcasting the exact same energy signature that Imperial scientists had labeled as potentially human military-grade propulsion. The damaged power systems were creating electromagnetic patterns that matched classified reports about human warship engines. Morrison also did not know that his malfunctioning proximity sensors were detecting the massive Imperial fleet that was slowly surrounding his position. Each time his sensors beeped, he assumed it was another false alarm caused by his failing electronics. Back on the Stellar Dominion, Admiral Zix-9 was making decisions that would change the fate of both the Empire and humanity. He pulled up classified files about human military capabilities. The reports painted a terrifying picture of an enemy that could turn any situation to their advantage. Humans were described as masters of deception. They could make one ship look like many, or many ships look like none at all. They used psychological warfare that broke enemy morale before the shooting even started. Their technology was decades ahead of anything the Empire had developed. "Send a priority message to Fleet Command," Zix-9 ordered. "Request immediate reinforcement of this sector. If humans are operating in Imperial space, we need more ships." The communications officer began transmitting the urgent request. Within minutes, alerts would be flashing on command screens throughout the Empire. The massive military machine would begin turning its attention toward this remote corner of space. Zix-9 studied the energy readings again. The pattern was definitely similar to human technology, but something felt wrong about it. The signal was too weak for a warship. It flickered and faded like a damaged system, rather than the steady pulse of a military vessel. But Imperial intelligence reports warned that humans were masters of misdirection. A weak signal could be hiding a powerful ship. Inconsistent readings might be advanced stealth technology. Everything about human tactics suggested that nothing was as it seemed. Maintain long-range scanning, Zix-9 commanded. Do not approach the source of the signal. Humans are known to use traps and ambush tactics. Meanwhile, Morrison was trying to figure out why his cargo bay doors kept opening and closing by themselves. He had spent the last hour crawling through maintenance tunnels, checking electrical connections and replacing fuses. His coveralls were dirty, and his hands were covered with grease and hydraulic fluid. The farming equipment in his cargo hold was perfectly normal. Tractors, plows, irrigation systems, and fertilizer spreaders. Nothing that could be considered military hardware. But Morrison's manifest showed unusual power readings from some of the electric tractors. Readings that would look suspicious to anyone expecting to find hidden weapons. As Morrison worked on his ship, Imperial reinforcements were already being dispatched from 3 different sectors. The reports of possible human presence had triggered automatic response protocols. Fleet commanders who had never seen a human ship were preparing for battle against an enemy that existed mostly in their imagination. Admiral Zix-9 watched his tactical display as more Imperial ships appeared on the edge of his sensor range. Help was coming, but he wondered if it would be enough. Every report about human military capability made them sound more dangerous and unpredictable. The energy signature from the unknown contact continued to pulse weakly across Imperial sensors. Whatever was out there, human or not, had succeeded in mobilizing the largest military response in recent Imperial history. Morrison finally got his cargo bay doors working properly. He made himself a cup of coffee and settled back into his pilot seat. According to his broken navigation system, he still had 2 days of travel before reaching his destination. He had no idea that his simple cargo run was about to change the balance of power in the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Korth 1 received the emergency transmission while reviewing tactical reports in his private office on the capital world of Throne Prime. The message from Admiral Zix-9 made his blood run cold. Possible human military presence in the Centauri system. The words seemed to burn themselves into his mind as he read them again and again. Korth 1 had commanded Imperial fleets for over 30 years. He had fought pirates, rebels, and hostile alien species across the galaxy. But humans were different. They were the unknown factor that could turn any battle into a disaster. The reports from Vega still gave him nightmares about what a single human ship could accomplish. Within minutes of reading Zix-9's message, Korth 1 was issuing orders that would mobilize 7 complete battle fleets. Each fleet contained dozens of warships, thousands of fighters, and support vessels loaded with the Empire's most advanced weapons. The combined force would be larger than anything assembled since the Great War 50 years ago. Emergency alerts flashed across command screens on military bases throughout Imperial space. Ship captains were pulled from leave and ordered to prepare for immediate deployment. Supply depots began loading ammunition and fuel for what could become the largest military operation in Imperial history. On Earth, completely unaware of the chaos spreading across the galaxy, Lieutenant Colonel Lisa Martinez was having a normal day at the Terran Colonial Defense Headquarters. She sat at her desk reviewing supply requests for the 3 aging patrol cruisers that made up humanity's entire deep space military force. The paperwork was routine and boring. The patrol ship New Horizon needed new air filters and hull patches. The cruiser Liberty required engine maintenance and fresh food supplies for its crew of 40. The third ship, Defender, was already in dry dock for repairs that would take another 6 months to complete. Martinez sipped her coffee and wondered why the supply budget was always too small for everything they needed. Humanity's military was designed for basic system defense and pirate patrol. The idea of fighting a real war against a major alien power was something that existed only in science fiction movies. She had no way of knowing that across the galaxy, alien intelligence analysts were creating detailed reports about humanity's hidden military capabilities. Every human civilian ship was assumed to be carrying secret weapons. Every human colony was believed to have underground military bases. Every trade agreement was interpreted as part of some master strategy for galactic conquest. Far from Earth, Morrison's cargo hauler Lucky Strike continued drifting through space on its broken engines. Morrison had managed to get his navigation system partially working, but the readings still made no sense. According to his instruments, there were large objects moving in the distance, but his visual scanners showed empty space. Morrison assumed his sensors were malfunctioning along with everything else on his ship. He did not realize that 17 Imperial surveillance satellites were now tracking his every movement. Each course correction he made was being analyzed by military computers trying to decode his tactical intentions. The Imperial Intelligence Network had classified Morrison's ship as a vessel of unknown capability with probable military function. His cargo manifest listed farming equipment, but Imperial analysts assumed this was a cover story. After all, humans were known for their deception and misdirection. When Morrison jettisoned 3 defective cargo containers to reduce the strain on his failing engines, Imperial forces went to high alert. The containers contained broken irrigation pumps and damaged fertilizer spreaders, but Imperial sensors detected the metal debris and classified it as deployment of unknown human military hardware. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was working late in her laboratory, aboard the human research station Galileo, when her communication equipment began picking up fragments of alien transmissions. As a xenobiologist, she was trained to recognize different alien languages and communication patterns. What she was hearing made no sense at first. The transmissions were heavily encrypted Imperial military traffic, but the few words she could decode were disturbing. Fleet movements, battle preparations, and references to human military threats filled the airwaves. Elena checked her equipment twice to make sure she was not making mistakes. The Imperial military was definitely mobilizing for something big, and they seemed to believe humans were involved. But Elena knew that humanity barely had enough ships to patrol its own solar system, let alone threaten a galactic empire. She tried to contact Earth Command to report what she was hearing, but the communication relays were experiencing interference. Elena did not know that Imperial electronic warfare units were jamming civilian communication channels as part of their preparation for combat. Back in Imperial space, Admiral Zix-9 watched his tactical display fill with friendly contacts as reinforcement fleets arrived in the Centauri system. The massive formation of warships was impressive and terrifying at the same time. If humans were really operating in this area, the Empire was now prepared to meet them with overwhelming force. But something still bothered Zix-9 about the whole situation. The mysterious energy signature remained weak and inconsistent. For a species known for their advanced technology and tactical brilliance, the humans seemed to be maintaining a very low profile. Imperial intelligence officers were working around the clock to analyze every piece of data about the unknown contact. They measured the energy output, tracked the movement patterns, and compared everything to known human technology profiles. The more they studied the readings, the more convinced they became that they were dealing with something beyond their understanding. The possibility that the contact might not be human at all never seriously occurred to anyone. Imperial doctrine stated that any unknown technology should be assumed to be human until proven otherwise. This policy had been created after the disaster at Vega, where an Imperial commander had ignored early warning signs of human presence. Morrison was getting frustrated with his ship's problems. The fusion drive was making even stranger noises, and his life support systems were starting to show warning signs. He needed to reach a repair station soon, or his cargo run would turn into a survival situation. He activated his emergency beacon, sending out a standard civilian distress signal, requesting mechanical assistance. The signal was weak and intermittent due to his failing power systems, but it should be enough to attract the attention of any nearby ships willing to help. Morrison had no idea that his emergency beacon was being received by hundreds of Imperial warships surrounding his position. Military communications experts analyzed the signal and concluded that it must be some form of advanced human battle code. The strange rhythm and intermittent nature of the transmission convinced them that it contained hidden tactical information. As Imperial fleets continued to gather in the Centauri system, the tension among alien commanders reached dangerous levels. Everyone was waiting for the humans to make their move. Every sensor reading was studied for signs of human trickery. Every minute that passed without contact made the situation more nerve-wracking. The irony was complete. The most powerful military force in galactic history was preparing to fight an enemy that consisted of one broken cargo ship piloted by a confused human who just wanted to deliver farming equipment to the outer colonies. The Grand War Council of the Galactic Empire had not met in emergency session for over 20 years. Representatives from 12 different species gathered in the massive chamber on Throne Prime, their faces showing varying degrees of fear and determination. The holographic displays around the room showed fleet positions, tactical assessments, and intelligence reports all focused on one terrifying subject: humanity. General Vex 7, the Empire's chief military strategist, stood before the assembled leaders with a datapad full of disturbing information. His four eyes scanned the crowd as he began his briefing about human military capabilities and the growing threat they pose to Imperial security. "The evidence is overwhelming," Vex 7 announced, his voice carrying across the chamber. "Human agents have infiltrated our space. Their technology operates beyond our understanding. Their strategic planning appears to work on levels that our best minds cannot comprehend." The general activated the main display screen, showing a star map dotted with red markers. Each marker represented what Imperial intelligence believed to be evidence of human military activity. The pattern looked organized and threatening, like a web closing around Imperial territory. What the Imperial leaders did not know was that most of their evidence came from misunderstanding perfectly normal events. A weather satellite that had been drifting dead in space for 2 years was classified as proof of human stealth technology. The satellite's solar panels had stopped working long ago, but its metal hull still reflected sensor beams in ways that confused Imperial detection systems. Trade route disruptions caused by natural solar flare activity were attributed to human economic warfare when solar storms interfered with communication relays. Imperial analysts assumed that humans were using advanced jamming technology to disrupt Imperial commerce and military coordination. Even a toy rocket launched from a human colony world during a children's festival was classified as a test of new propulsion systems. The small firework had traveled barely a few kilometers before burning out, but Imperial sensors detected the chemical signature and filed it as evidence of human weapons. Development. Captain Morrison was completely unaware that his cargo hauler had become the center of galactic attention. His fusion drive had finally stopped making strange noises, mainly because it had stopped working altogether. The Lucky Strike was now drifting on backup power, with life support systems running on emergency settings. Morrison tried to stay calm as he worked through his emergency procedures. His distress beacon was functioning, sort of. The signal kept cutting in and out due to power fluctuations, but he hoped it would be enough to attract help from passing ships. He had enough emergency food for about a week, and enough air for maybe 10 days if he was careful. His cargo of farming equipment was worthless for survival, but some of the tractors had small fusion cells that might be able to power his life support systems, if he could figure out how to connect them. 3 separate alien species had already offered to surrender to the Empire, rather than face what they believed would be humanity's unstoppable military advance. The Zephyrian Trade Federation sent a formal message offering to become an Imperial protectorate in exchange for protection from human aggression. The Crystalline Collective announced that they would withdraw all their ships from contested border regions to avoid accidentally provoking human retaliation. Most disturbing of all, the Void Hunters, a species known for their fierce independence and military prowess, had requested permission to relocate their entire civilization to a distant galaxy. They cited the inevitable human conquest of this galactic region as their reason for abandoning territory they had held for thousands of years. Imperial intelligence officers were working day and night to track what they believed to be a vast human military operation. Every piece of data was analyzed and reanalyzed for hidden meanings and secret messages. The more they studied the evidence, the more convinced they became that humanity was executing a master plan of incredible complexity and subtlety. Commander Rick Thompson received an urgent message from Earth Command while his patrol cruiser New Horizon was conducting routine border patrol near the outer colonies. The message was brief but alarming. Massive alien fleets were gathering near human space for unknown reasons, and all colonial defense ships were ordered to maintain high alert status. Thompson read the message twice, trying to understand what could be happening. His ship was one of only 3 military vessels that humanity had capable of deep space operations. The idea that aliens might see his little patrol cruiser as a threat was almost laughable. But the message from Earth Command suggested that something serious was developing. Thompson ordered his crew to begin scanning for alien ships while maintaining their normal patrol route. The New Horizon was armed with basic defensive weapons and carried a crew of 35. Against a major alien military force, they would last about as long as an ice cube in a furnace. What Thompson did not know was that Imperial intelligence had designated his ship as probable flagship of human deep space battle group. Intelligence analysts had concluded that humans must be using advanced holographic camouflage to hide the rest of their fleet, making one small ship appear to be alone when it was actually commanding hundreds of invisible vessels. Meanwhile, Morrison's emergency beacon continued broadcasting its intermittent distress call. Imperial communications experts had spent hours analyzing the signal pattern, convinced that it contained coded tactical instructions for human military units scattered throughout the region. The fact that the signal was weak and inconsistent only reinforced their belief that they were dealing with advanced human technology. Obviously, the humans were using sophisticated encryption and signal manipulation techniques to coordinate their forces while avoiding detection by Imperial sensors. Admiral Zix-9 stood on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by tactical displays showing the positions of 7 Imperial battle fleets. Over 400 warships were now gathered in the Centauri system, representing the largest military force assembled in decades. The sight should have been reassuring, but Zix-9 felt only growing anxiety. Hours had passed with no sign of human military activity beyond the mysterious energy signature that had started this whole crisis. The signature continued to pulse weakly, sometimes fading almost to nothing before returning. Imperial scientists had concluded that this must be some form of advanced stealth technology that allowed human ships to exist partially outside normal space-time. The longer the standoff continued, the more nervous Imperial commanders became. Human tactical doctrine, according to their intelligence files, emphasized psychological warfare and unexpected strategies. Perhaps the humans were deliberately doing nothing as a way of increasing Imperial anxiety and forcing mistakes. Zix-9 reviewed the tactical options available to his combined fleets. They could advance and attempt to force contact with the human vessel, but that might trigger a larger battle that the Empire was not prepared for. They could withdraw and hope the humans would follow their own agenda, but that would leave Imperial territory vulnerable to attack. The Admiral was trapped in a situation where every possible action seemed dangerous, and inaction felt equally risky. This, he realized, was exactly the kind of psychological pressure that humans were famous for creating in their enemies. Morrison had managed to connect one of the tractor fusion cells to his ship's power grid. The jury-rigged connection was dangerous and unstable, but it gave him enough power to keep life support running for a few more days. He was proud of his creative engineering, even though it meant he would have to explain to his customers why one of their tractors had been cannibalized for parts. As he worked on the improvised power connection, Morrison had no idea that his activities were being monitored by the most advanced surveillance technology in the galaxy, or that his simple survival efforts were being interpreted as evidence of humanity's terrifying military capabilities. The Imperial 7th Fleet took its final positions around the Centauri system, in a formation that military historians would later call the largest deployment of naval power in galactic history. Over 400 warships spread across space, in carefully coordinated attack patterns, their weapons charged and shields raised, all waiting for a single human vessel to reveal itself. Admiral Zix-9 had transformed his original patrol group into the core of a massive battle fleet. Ships arrived hourly from distant sectors, each captain eager to participate in what they believed would be a historic confrontation with humanity's military forces. The combined firepower now gathered in the system could have destroyed entire planets, yet everyone remained nervous about facing a single human contact. Morrison's cargo hauler Lucky Strike drifted helplessly through the center of this military formation, completely invisible to Imperial sensors due to what their scientists believed was advanced stealth technology. In reality, Morrison's ship was simply too small and too broken to register as a significant contact on military-grade detection systems designed to track large warships. Morrison had given up trying to fix his fusion drive and was now focused on basic survival. His improvised power connection was holding steady, giving him enough electricity to run life support and basic communications. The emergency rations tasted terrible, but they would keep him alive long enough for rescue to arrive. He activated his emergency beacon again, sending out the standard civilian distress call that requested mechanical assistance from any nearby vessels. Morrison had no way of knowing that his beacon was being received and analyzed by hundreds of Imperial military communications officers who were convinced it contained secret tactical codes. The beacon's signal was weak and kept cutting out due to power fluctuations, which only reinforced Imperial beliefs about human technological sophistication. Clearly, the humans were using advanced signal manipulation techniques to hide their true intentions while coordinating military activities across the region. On Earth, President Amanda Foster called an emergency meeting of the Colonial Council. After receiving disturbing reports about alien fleet movements near human territory, the council chamber was filled with worried faces as military advisors presented what little information they had been able to gather. General Carl Jackson, the senior military advisor to the Colonial Council, stood before a holographic display showing the approximate positions of alien fleets based on long-range sensor data collected by human listening posts. The numbers were staggering and terrifying. Based on our intelligence, Jackson explained, the aliens have assembled a military force larger than anything in recorded history. We estimate over 400 warships of various sizes, all concentrated near our outer territories. President Foster studied the tactical display with growing alarm. What are our defensive capabilities against a force of that size? Jackson's expression was grim. Ma'am, if they decide to attack, our 3 patrol cruisers would last approximately 7 minutes in direct combat. We have system defense platforms around Earth and the major colonies, but they were designed to handle pirates and small raiders, not a full-scale alien invasion. The irony of the situation was completely lost on everyone in the room. While humanity's leaders worried about defending against an alien invasion, those same aliens were paralyzed with fear about humanity's non-existent military might. Back in Imperial space, commanders were developing increasingly elaborate theories about human tactical doctrine. The longer nothing happened, the more convinced they became that they were witnessing a demonstration of strategic thinking that operated on levels beyond their comprehension. Some Imperial strategists believed that humans were employing meta-psychological warfare, using the mere threat of their presence to achieve victory without firing a single shot. Others suggested that the delay was part of a larger human plan to study Imperial fleet formations and develop countermeasures for a future battle. Admiral Korth I reviewed intelligence reports in his command center on Throne Prime, trying to understand what the humans were planning. Every analysis of human behavior suggested that they never acted without purpose. If they were maintaining a presence in Imperial space without attacking, there had to be a reason. The most disturbing theory came from the Empire's top xenopsychologists, who suggested that humans might be using advanced psychological manipulation techniques to gradually break down Imperial morale. By doing nothing, they were forcing Imperial forces to remain at high alert indefinitely, causing stress and exhaustion that would weaken combat effectiveness over time. Commander Thompson's patrol cruiser New Horizon continued its normal patrol route while maintaining enhanced sensor sweeps for signs of alien activity. Thompson had ordered his crew to battle stations as a precaution, but so far they had detected nothing unusual in their assigned sector. Thompson was unaware that Imperial intelligence had designated his small ship as the probable command vessel for humanity's entire deep space military operation. Intelligence analysts had concluded that the New Horizon must be using advanced holographic camouflage to hide a massive support fleet, creating the illusion of a single patrol cruiser, when it was actually coordinating hundreds of invisible warships. The Imperial surveillance network was tracking Thompson's every movement, looking for patterns that might reveal human strategic intentions. When the New Horizon changed course to investigate a routine navigation beacon malfunction, Imperial analysts interpreted the maneuver as a tactical probe of Imperial defenses. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had finally managed to establish communication with Earth Command, despite the interference that was jamming civilian channels. Her report about Imperial military activities caused immediate alarm among colonial defense officials, who realized that humanity was somehow involved in a major galactic crisis. Elena's analysis of the intercepted alien communications suggested that the aliens believed humans posed a serious military threat to their empire. The idea seemed absurd given humanity's limited space capabilities, but the evidence was undeniable. Massive alien fleets were mobilizing specifically because of their fear of human military power. Meanwhile, Morrison was making progress with his emergency repairs. He had managed to stabilize his power systems and restore partial functionality to his navigation computer. According to his readings, he was still several days away from the nearest space station, but at least he now knew where he was going. Morrison's activities were being monitored by sophisticated Imperial surveillance equipment that interpreted his repair work as preparation for some form of military action. When he tested his communication systems to see if he could contact the shipping company to report his delay, Imperial Signals Intelligence officers classified the transmission as human military coordination traffic. The cargo containers that Morrison had jettisoned earlier were recovered by Imperial forces and subjected to intensive analysis. Military scientists examined every piece of farming equipment, looking for hidden weapons or advanced technology that might explain humanity's military capabilities. They found irrigation pumps, fertilizer spreaders, and broken tractor parts. But Imperial analysts, convinced that humans disguised military hardware as civilian equipment, concluded that these were obviously sophisticated weapon systems designed to look like farming tools. The chemical residue from fertilizer was classified as evidence of human chemical warfare capability. As hours turned into a full day of tense standoff, Imperial forces began showing signs of strain. Crew members who had been at battle stations for over 24 hours were becoming tired and irritable. Equipment that had been running at maximum readiness was starting to show stress failures. Admiral Zix-9 faced a growing dilemma. His fleet could not maintain this level of alert indefinitely without suffering serious degradation of combat capability, but standing down from high alert might be exactly what the humans were waiting for. Perhaps this was all part of their plan to weaken Imperial forces through exhaustion and mechanical failures. The mysterious energy signature that had started this entire crisis continued to pulse weakly across Imperial sensors. Sometimes it faded to almost nothing, causing momentary hope that the human vessel had departed. Then it would return, stronger than before, reminding everyone that the threat was still present. Morrison had no idea that his broken fusion drive was creating the energy pattern that held the attention of the largest military force in galactic history. He was simply trying to survive long enough for rescue to arrive, completely unaware that his survival efforts were being interpreted as evidence of humanity's terrifying military capabilities. After 18 hours of tense waiting and growing anxiety, salvation arrived for Morrison in the form of the civilian rescue vessel Helping Hand. The small tug ship appeared on his sensors like an answer to prayers, its familiar human design and friendly identification signal filling Morrison with relief. Tony Rodriguez piloted the rescue tug with the casual confidence of someone who had been pulling broken ships out of trouble for over 20 years. His vessel was completely unarmed and purely civilian, designed for mechanical assistance and emergency towing. Tony had received Morrison's distress beacon through the normal civilian emergency network and was responding as part of his regular salvage contract with the shipping company. Tony had no way of knowing that Imperial sensors had detected his approach and classified it as the arrival of human special forces. His small rescue ship triggered panic across the massive alien fleet as intelligence. Officers concluded that the humans were finally making their move. Captain Sue Williams was Tony's partner and co-pilot aboard the Helping Hand. She had been looking forward to a routine rescue operation that would pay for fuel and supplies while helping a fellow human in distress. As they approached Morrison's position, Sue began broadcasting the standard rescue greeting on civilian frequencies. Unknown vessel, this is the civilian rescue ship Helping Hand responding to your distress beacon. Please identify yourself and state the nature of your emergency so we can provide appropriate assistance. The response she received was completely unexpected and utterly baffling. Instead of Morrison's grateful voice, Sue's communication system was flooded with frantic transmissions from alien vessels offering unconditional surrender. Dozens of different voices speaking various alien languages filled her speakers, all of them begging for mercy and promising to cooperate with human demands. Sue stared at Tony in complete confusion. What the hell is going on out here? Tony was equally mystified as he watched his sensor display fill with contact markers representing the largest concentration of ships he had ever seen. Hundreds of vessels surrounded their position, all of them broadcasting surrender signals and requests for peaceful negotiation. "I have no idea," Tony replied, "but I think we just stumbled into something way bigger than a simple rescue operation." Meanwhile, Morrison was overjoyed to see the rescue ship approaching. He had been alone with his failing systems for almost 2 days, and the sight of another human vessel filled him with hope. He quickly responded to Sue's greeting with details about his mechanical problems and his need for towing assistance to the nearest repair facility. Helping hand, "This is Captain Morrison aboard the cargo vessel Lucky Strike. My fusion drive has completely failed and I'm running on emergency power. I need a tow to Starport 7 if possible, and I can pay standard salvage rates." What Morrison did not realize was that Imperial communications officers were intercepting and analyzing every word of his transmission. His casual mention of standard salvage rates was interpreted as a coded reference to human military payment systems. His request for towing to Starport 7 was assumed to be tactical coordinates for a human military base. Admiral Zix-9 watched the development with a mixture of fascination and terror. The arrival of what his intelligence officers assured him was a human special operations vessel had triggered exactly the kind of response that Imperial doctrine recommended. Rather than risk a battle against superior human technology, the smart move was to negotiate and hope for reasonable terms. But Zix-9 was troubled by inconsistencies in the situation. The special operations vessel appeared to be a simple civilian rescue ship. The original human contact was clearly a damaged cargo hauler, not a military vessel. None of this matched the intelligence reports about human military capabilities. Sue Williams found herself in the unprecedented position of accidentally accepting the formal surrender of 3 entire Imperial battle fleets. The alien commanders were so eager to avoid combat with what they believed were human military forces that they were offering complete cooperation before any demands had even been made. Tony," Sue said uncertainly, "I think I just became some kind of admiral or something. These aliens keep asking me what terms I want for their surrender." Tony was busy maneuvering the helping hand into position to assist Morrison's cargo ship. "Just tell them we're here to help a stranded freighter and we don't want any trouble. Maybe they'll leave us alone so we can do our job." The truth began to emerge through a series of increasingly absurd communications between humans and aliens. Sue's attempts to explain that she was simply a civilian rescue operator were met with respectful requests for clarification of human diplomatic protocols. Morrison's descriptions of his cargo and mechanical problems were analyzed as sophisticated disinformation designed to conceal human military capabilities. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had managed to establish communication links between the human research station and the confused participants in the standoff. As a xenobiologist with training in alien psychology and communication, she was uniquely qualified to help translate between species and resolve the misunderstanding. "What we have here," Elena explained in a conference call that included Morrison, Sue, Tony, and several bewildered Earth Command officers, "is a massive case of mistaken identity, combined with cultural misinterpretation on a galactic scale." Elena had spent hours analyzing Imperial communications and comparing them with the actual facts of the situation. The evidence painted a clear picture of how fear and paranoia had transformed a simple equipment malfunction into an interstellar crisis. "The aliens have been watching us and misinterpreting everything we do," Elena continued. "They think we have advanced military technology when we're actually just good at improvising solutions to problems. They think our civilian activities are evidence of sophisticated strategic planning. They've built up this image of humanity as an unstoppable military force based on a series of coincidences and misunderstandings. The resolution process took several days of careful communication and patient explanation. Imperial representatives were initially skeptical of human claims that their military capabilities had been vastly overestimated. But as evidence mounted and more examples of misinterpretation came to light, the truth became undeniable. Morrison's broken cargo hauler had been mistaken for advanced stealth technology. His emergency repairs were seen as evidence of human engineering superiority. His distress beacon was interpreted as sophisticated military communications. Even his farming equipment was classified as disguised weapons systems president. Foster and the Colonial Council found themselves in the remarkable position of negotiating humanity's entry into galactic politics from a position of accidental strength. The Empire's willingness to offer favorable terms for peaceful coexistence was based entirely on their overestimation of human military power, but the results were real, regardless of the reasons. We seem to have talked our way into becoming a major galactic power without firing a shot, President Foster observed during one of the diplomatic sessions. I'm not sure whether to be proud or terrified by what this says about our reputation. The final agreements established formal diplomatic relations between humanity and the Galactic Empire, with provisions for trade, cultural exchange, and mutual defense cooperation. The Empire quietly downgraded its threat assessment of humanity from existential menace to potentially dangerous but probably reasonable. Humanity, meanwhile, gained access to advanced alien technology and galactic trade networks while maintaining their independence and territorial sovereignty. The Colonial Defense Force began planning for actual military expansion, recognizing that their accidental reputation would need some substance behind it in the future. Morrison finally got his farming equipment delivered to the outer colonies, though it took several extra days due to the diplomatic complications his rescue had created. He was completely unaware that his breakdown had nearly started an interstellar. Warren had ultimately established humanity as a major player in galactic politics. The helping hand received a substantial bonus payment from the shipping company for their role in resolving the diplomatic crisis, even though Sue and Tony never completely understood what had happened. Tony used the extra money to upgrade his rescue ship's engines, while Sue invested in better communication, equipment to avoid future misunderstandings. The story became a legend told throughout both human and alien space about the dangers of acting on incomplete information and the power of reputation over reality. The Empire learned valuable lessons about the importance of accurate intelligence and the risks of letting fear drive military policy. Humanity discovered that sometimes the most effective weapon is the one that exists only in your enemy's imagination, and that accidental diplomacy can be more successful than any deliberate military strategy. The galaxy became a slightly safer place once everyone learned to communicate more clearly and verify their assumptions before mobilizing for war.